Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Ear Lab.
Okay, so how on earth did we go from holding a literal trumpet up to our ear to wearing a tiny, almost invisible computer that can pick a single voice out of a crazy crowded room? Well, that's the story we're going to get into today. It's an incredible journey from simple funnels to the AI-powered devices that are literally changing lives.
All right, so here's our game plan. We're going to start in a world of silence, then move into the first stage of just raw amplification. After that, we'll see how these things finally got practical to wear, witness the absolute game changer that was the digital revolution, and then we'll jump into the AI-powered future and wonder, what's next? So first up, let's just try to picture a time without hearing aids. And I mean, not just without the technology, but without any real scientific understanding of hearing loss itself. You can imagine this was a profoundly isolating reality for millions of people. So before the 1800s, what were your options if you had hearing loss? Well, they were incredibly limited, and none of them were tech-based. It was a world of pure and often difficult adaptation. You'd have to do things like sit closer to people, become an absolute expert at reading lips, and really depend on the patience of others. But the real cost? It was social. So many people just started avoiding gatherings altogether, which led to this deep sense of isolation. Hearing loss wasn't looked at as a condition you could treat, but more like a personal failing. And then, the first real solutions started to appear. Welcome to the age of amplification. The goal here was beautifully simple, but for its time, it was revolutionary. Just make sound physically louder. That's it. And this era, it stretched across centuries. It started with purely mechanical tools, like the ear trumpet, before making this huge leap into the electric age with carbon and vacuum tube aids. Every single step here was a massive shift in what was possible. And you gotta love the ear trumpet. It was the original elegant solution. No batteries, no wires, nothing. It was just a masterpiece of basic physics, mechanically grabbing sound waves and funneling them right into the ear. This was passive amplification at its most basic, and frankly, its most stylish. But then, in the early 1900s, carbon microphones came along and, boom, everything changed. For the very first time, we could use electricity to actively make sounds louder, not just passively collect them. This was a monumental leap, even if the devices were huge and the sound was, kind of raw and distorted. The vacuum tube era in the 1920s gave us more power and more control over that volume, but the trade-off was pretty stark. These things were enormous. They were body-worn devices with these heavy battery packs that got really hot. So yeah, they were powerful, but they were a long, long way from being practical. Okay, so the next great leap wasn't about more power. It was about something much more important for daily life, making these things small, efficient, and precise enough to actually wear comfortably. This was the dawn of practicality. And the breakthrough that made it all possible arrived in the 1950s with one of the most important inventions of the 20th century. The transistor. This tiny little component didn't just revolutionize electronics, it changed the future of audiology forever. See, because transistors were so small and so energy efficient, they allowed for the very first behind-the-ear devices. And just like that, hearing aids were untethered from the body. They were small, they were portable, and they were truly wearable, all day, every day. And this brings us to probably the single biggest shift in the entire history of hearing tech, the move from analog to digital. Now, this wasn't just an upgrade, it was a complete reimagining of what a hearing aid was even for. And this right here perfectly captures that huge change in philosophy. For a century, the goal was just make everything louder. But the digital era brought a new, way more sophisticated mission, making human speech clearer, especially in noisy places. That was the real problem that needed solving. So, what was the magic behind this? It's a technology called digital signal processing, or DSP. Basically, it turned the hearing aid from a simple amplifier into a tiny, smart sound filter. For the first time, it could analyze sound as actual data that a computer could play with. So, how's it work? Well, think of it this way. The microphone grabs all the sound around you, the good, the bad, all of it. That messy signal gets turned into digital code. Then a tiny processor analyzes that code and intelligently separates what it thinks is speech from what it thinks is just noise, before delivering a much cleaner, clearer result to your ear. And this quote just nails the new mission, right? Because for most people with hearing loss, the biggest challenge isn't just volume. It's trying to understand a conversation in a noisy restaurant or at a family get-together. Digital technology was the first real tool that could directly attack that problem. And, of course, once hearing aids went digital, they could join the rest of our digital lives. Wireless tech turned them into connected, personal devices. Suddenly, you could stream phone calls and music directly to your ears, control every setting from an app on your phone, and even get your hearing fine-tuned by an audiologist from hundreds of miles away. They weren't just hearing aids anymore. They were wearables. All of that brings us right up to today, to the age of AI. Now, hearing aids are no longer just processing sound based on some preset rules. No, they're actively learning and making decisions all on their own. Honestly, it's more accurate to call today's top devices wearable auditory computers. They use artificial intelligence and machine learning to analyze your environment in real time, making literally thousands of intelligent adjustments every single second to personalize the sound just for you. So, what does that actually feel like? Well, it means your hearing aid knows the difference between a quiet library, a car, and a loud cafe, and it changes its own settings instantly as you move between them. It learns from the volume adjustments you make, getting smarter over time, and getting better and better at pulling the voices you want to hear out of all the noise you don't. So, after this incredible journey, from a simple funnel to a thinking computer on your ear, what's next? Well, the future of hearing technology is starting to look way beyond just amplifying sound. And it's fascinating to realize that every single technological leap we've just talked about was only possible because our scientific understanding of the ear and the brain was also getting better. The tech didn't just evolve in a vacuum, it was pulled forward by the science of audiology. And that progress in science leaves us with a truly mind-blowing idea. With cutting-edge research into things like hair cell regeneration and even direct brain interfaces, the ultimate goal is starting to shift. It might no longer be simply to aid hearing, but to one day fully and naturally restore it. And I mean, what would a world like that even look like?
Thank you for watching, and I believe you have gained some knowledge. Like, share, and subscribe to the Ear Lab.